The elusive Ghostbusters 3 is something people have been wanting for years, but never came to be. That doesn't count. However, what if I told you that Ghostbusters 3 is indeed real, and you can experience it right now? This is Ghostbusters the video game, and it is indeed the real Ghostbusters 3, and it should from now on be addressed as such. There are two versions of this game. There's the HD version on PC, Xbox 360, and PS3, and then there's the Wii version, which is considerably different. I won't be looking at the Wii version here, maybe another time, but I specifically have the PS3 version, so that's what I'm reviewing here. So let's start with the story. There will be spoilers for the entire game.
Hey, how come this mump gets all the new stuff?
He's our new experimental equipment technician.
He gets a cool title, too?
It means he gets to carry around a bunch of untested, extremely dangerous hardware that, if not handled correctly, could blow him somewhere into New Jersey.
Oh, this knucklehead lugs around our very dangerous prototype hardware that could potentially blow us into New Jersey. Thanks. Keep the title, kid. It'll work hard for you.
So the story involves you, a nameless, voiceless, rookie character who joins the Ghostbusters. At first I didn't like that he didn't talk, but then I realized that meant the actual Ghostbusters, who are all voiced by their original actors, had more time to talk themselves.
Wow, it's like Christmas came early.
Since you don't talk, the rookie doesn't really contribute anything to the story at all. You could take him out and it would be pretty much the same, save for one moment when you need to save the other Ghostbusters. But the story mostly involves the Ghostbusters trying to find out what's causing all of the new paranormal activity lately, and once they do figure it out, put a stop to it. There are a lot of throwbacks to the first two movies, mostly the first. They go back to the hotel to catch Slimer, Stay Puft comes back, they actually catch the librarian ghost, and more stuff like that. But these aren't just fan service, they actually do have story significance. For example, Ivo Shandor, who was the Gozerian architect who was mentioned in the first movie, is the main villain, and he brings back Gozer right from the start of the game. But as we find out much later in the game, Gozer can only have one destructor form per dimension, and since Ray had already picked a form in the first movie, that's why he is still the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Sometimes it does come off as something only happens for the sake of fan service, like the tutorial mission where you pretty much reenact the hotel scene with Slimer in the first movie, but most of the time there's a good reason for it. And it's not like the game lacks new stuff like going to the Ghost World. After the encounter with Stay Puft, the main story begins. The Ghostbusters go to various locations, trying to disable all the nodes to a mandala by defeating the Guardians to prevent something. They don't figure out what the purpose of it is until the very end. During all of this, Walter Peck is constantly trying to get them fired, and the Ghostbusters suspect he might be behind everything. The Ghostbusters manage to stop the mandala, but then Peck shuts down the Ghostbusters containment unit, again, because that worked out so well the last time. After a stroll through the park, they find out it wasn't Peck, but the mayor who was behind everything. The mayor was possessed by Shandor himself, and after the Ghostbusters stopped Stay Puft again, he decided to fuck Gozer and get his own destructor form. He created the mandala to get enough Pika energy to make the form, but after the mandala was shut down, he turned off the containment unit to get the energy from there. Why didn't he just do that from the start? Shandor manages to get his destructor form, and it's this generic-looking devil thing. Anyways, the Ghostbusters cross the stream and send it to oblivion, and all is well.
We eat gods for breakfast.
Venkman even gets the girl. Wait, the girl? Oh, I forgot to mention her. Her name is Alyssa, and they save her from Stay Puft. I forgot to mention her because she doesn't really do much. She turns out to be a descendant of Shandor, and might have accidentally caused everything, and Shandor needed to use her to get his destructor form, but that's about it. She and Peter have this romance thing going on, but it's not developed very well. That's really the only problem I have with the story, though. The rest of the story is very well done. The writing is spot on and the acting is really good thanks to the original actors.
Especially the Ghostbusters.
All right, heat him up. We'll melt our way in.
Wait, I have a better idea.
Good thinking.
Though Bill Murray sounds really bored at times,
Whoa, take a break. Do you ever shut up?
but still has some good lines.
You've killed my dessert!
The best thing is that it feels like Ghostbusters, and is a direct continuation of the movies instead of just rebooting it. This is why I call it Ghostbusters 3, because that's what it really is. But enough of the story, now let's talk about the presentation. Visually, for a 2009 game, it looks pretty good. The characters all look like who they're supposed to be, and the ghosts themselves look like they fit in with the movies. What really helps this game is the amount of detail. Just look at the proton packs. The firehouse is also very detailed and has a lot of references to the movies. They even have a painting of Vigo just lying around. You can interact with a lot of stuff in here. Sometimes I just like to wander around the firehouse messing with stuff for a while.
Yeah, the lady down the hall is having trouble with some sort of poltergeist. It keeps taking pictures of her coming out of the shower and mailing them to me.
They even put a reference to the NES game in here. This game also has destructible environments, and the way they break apart is really satisfying. The game also has some good atmosphere, and at times it gets kinda creepy. But that's it for the visuals. How about the music? Predictably, all the music is from the first movie, which is fine, but a little disappointing. Don't get me wrong, the soundtrack is good, but it's a pet peeve of mine where games based on movies don't have any original songs, and just use the already existing music. I'm not saying don't use those songs, but some original music would be good too. At least the Ghostbusters theme plays during loading screens. That's all I really have to say about the music, so let's move on to the gameplay. The best way I can describe the gameplay is if you combine Luigi's Mansion and Gears of War. It's a linear third-person shooter where you fight ghosts. When you start the game, you will only have your standard proton pack, but as you progress you will gain more weapons, the dark matter generator, the plasma disruption system, and the composite particle system. Each of these have two firing modes. The proton pack has the standard proton stream, which will be your main way of attacking throughout most of the game. The proton stream is able to pick up objects on the ground as well as ghosts. The secondary firing mode for the proton pack is the boson dart. It shoots out a big blast that does a lot of damage. It can also hurt you. The primary weapon of the dark matter generator is the shock blast, which is basically a shotgun. This weapon gets a lot of use as well, as it is really powerful. Its secondary is the stasis stream, which will freeze enemies, but I rarely use it. If you freeze an enemy and then shoot it, they will shatter, but I can defeat it very quickly with a shock blast anyway, so who cares. Next is the plasma disruption system, which contains the slime blower. The slime blower is primarily used to reveal hidden objects and to get rid of black slime. Throughout the game you will run into a lot of black slime, and if you stand in the stuff you will take damage. And ghosts can also use it as a portal. In some situations enemies will keep spawning from them, but with the slime blower you can easily get rid of the stuff. A lot of the time the black slime is just all over the place and it doesn't really do anything, and you don't have to get rid of it, but I always go out of my way to hose every bit down. Kinda like in Sunshine with the goop, I just get this urge to get rid of it all. Most of the time it isn't useful in combat, but later on in the game there will be black slime enemies that are weak to the slime. Anyways, the secondary is the slime tether. Its only purpose is moving objects and maybe some vague attempt at a puzzle, but I hesitate to call anything in this game a puzzle. And finally there's the composite particle system. The Meson Collider is just a rapid fire weapon, and the Overload Pulse is a bigger blast that isn't very powerful. These two weapons, however, can combine together. The Overload Pulse will stick to an enemy, and while that happens the Meson Collider will follow it. If you have played any of the Resistance games, it's exactly like the Bullseye weapon. Your equipment will overheat if you use it too much. You can vent out your pack to prevent it. You also get a PKE meter, which you can use to find hidden ghosts or to scan them. When you scan an enemy, you get info about them and their weakness, kinda like scanning in Metroid Prime. You can also find cursed objects hidden in the levels with the PKE meter. These are collectibles that don't serve much of a purpose, but they do appear in the firehouse. Everything you scan, ghosts and cursed objects alike, will give you money. You also get money by defeating enemies. Money is used to upgrade your equipment. All of your weapons get upgraded, as well as the trap and the PKE meter. It's fairly easy to get enough money to upgrade everything in one playthrough, especially if you scan everything.
Somebody needs to go there.
There are two types of enemies in the game, dispersible and trappable. Dispersible enemies come in a large variety, from small crawling candles to humanoid book beans to big hulking golems. There are several versions of each type with small differences, but you deal with them all the same way. Shoot them until they stop moving. Most of the time the shock blast is the best option for dispersible enemies, but there are some made of black slime that are weak to the slime gun. The small and humanoid ones are pretty easy to take care of, only really posing a threat in large numbers, but then there are the golems, who are also mostly easy to defeat. With the golems you just shoot them until their health turns red, then you grab their head with the proton stream and yank it off. Oh, except for the slime golems, you just shoot them until they go away. Also, these grave golems are a bit different. You can pull off the lantern attached to them, but it really doesn't do anything. But these guys go down really easily with the shock blast anyway. There are also gargoyles and cupid statues that attack you, but to defeat them is as simple as grabbing them with the proton stream and slamming them to the ground. Now the other type of enemies, trappable, consist entirely of ghosts. To get rid of ghosts you need to damage them until you're able to grab them. While you're holding on to them, they will try to get away, so you are able to slam them against the floor or walls to stun them long enough to bring them to a trap to catch them. You always have one trap with you and can throw it down at any time, and you can pick it up after you're done with it. But the weird thing is you don't need to retrieve it because even if you don't have it on you, you still throw another one. You can only have one trap active though, so throwing a second one will make the first trap disappear. Just like the dispersible enemies, the ghosts have their own weaknesses, but I always just use the proton stream to catch them, even if it might make it harder. I mean, when I'm playing a Ghostbusters game, I want to feel like a Ghostbuster and use the proton stream to bust some ghosts. Now, fighting the dispersible enemies is fun and all, but the game is at its best when you're catching ghosts. It is really satisfying to catch them. It makes you feel just like a Ghostbuster playing the game. During the Streets level, the Ecto-1 is with you, and it has a special trap called the Super Slammer that instantly catches any ghost near it, which is very satisfying. But the best part is you can upgrade your own trap to a Slam Dunk trap. When you have that upgrade, if you slam a ghost into the trap, it will be instantly captured. Although sometimes it can be a little hard hitting just the right spot, but it feels really good when you pull it off. Now you're part of a team, so you won't be busting alone, excluding a few instances where you get separated. The other Ghostbusters will join you and help out. They can fight enemies themselves, but they aren't very good at it. You will be doing most of the work and will often be the only one who catches the ghosts, although they do help you control ghosts you have wrangled. Your team is better at defeating dispersible enemies than ghosts, however, but they still aren't that reliable. However, the biggest reason to have them around is to help you if you get hurt. If you take too much damage, you will fall over, but if there are other Ghostbusters with you, they can help you up. They can also be downed, and you can help them up. You only lose if everyone is down at the same time, just like in Star Wars Republic Commando. Most of the time your team is good at helping you, but there are times when they can't handle the enemies long enough to get you up. The game is relatively easy most of the time, but there are some difficulty spikes here and there. But even during some of those spikes, it never really gets to the point of being frustrating. As the game progresses, there are less ghosts to catch and more dispersible enemies, which can get annoying because the ghosts are much more fun to fight. But it's not really a deal breaker. The island level is the weakest level in the game because you don't catch any ghosts at all. There are these blue ghosts, but you need to use slime against them. You can't catch them. Each level is fairly straightforward. You follow the path, fighting the enemies along the way until the end. Some levels have their own unique themes, like the streets having the Super Slammer and the library having you enter the ghost world. Each level has an impressive amount of destructible objects in the environment. I always try to cause as much damage as possible, and the best part is there's no penalty at all for breaking things. You get told how much money and property damage you're causing, but it doesn't go against the money you make.
The Alhambra Ballroom! The Bar Mitzvah! What have you done? The guests are arriving in 15 minutes!
Anyways, at the end of each level is a boss, and the bosses range from being kinda hard to piss easy. First up is Stay Puft. You just hit him with the boson darts until he falls. It's really that simple. Then there's the Librarian. She can be a bit annoying because of all the books she throws at you, but your teammates are pretty good at helping you during this fight. The Collector is the hardest fight in the game. He does a lot of damage, and you have to constantly help your team up because they keep getting knocked over. Plus hitting his eye is a bit awkward. The Chairman is easy, just shoot him when he appears and then deal with the mooks that appear afterwards. The Spider Witch is also easy. The only tricky part is finding her when she runs away to regain health. The Giant Slore can be a little tough, mostly because you need to get close so he can slam his head down, exposing his weak point, and it's really hard to dodge. And finally, Shandor himself. The first phase is simple, just wait for these green things to be exposed and then shoot them. And for the second phase, the final boss of the game, Shandor's Destructor form, it's also pretty easy. Just shoot him, then shoot the things giving him health, and repeat. Simple. Overall, you should have a relatively easy time with this game. If you want more of a challenge, there is a difficulty setting, but even still, the hardest difficulty isn't that much harder. And that's it for the single player, but there is a multiplayer mode. Oh, right. The servers are down on the PS3 version, so I can't play it anymore. This is why every game that has multiplayer should have bots, so you can always play it. I'm not a huge fan of online multiplayer, but there have been a few games that I played a lot with friends, and this was one of them. It has been a long time since I played it, but I remember it being pretty fun. If you want to play it still, you can do it on the Xbox 360, but you probably won't find anyone, so force a friend to play with you. Ghostbusters 3 is a very unique game that I don't think gets enough attention. Most people who have played it will agree that it is a pretty good game, but it seems to have been mostly forgotten by the industry. There have been a couple of Ghostbusters games since it, but they haven't been able to recapture the magic that this game has. Sanctum of Slime completely changed the gameplay to a top-down shooter, and while I've never played it myself, I've heard bad things about it. And then there was the one that came out last year, and the less said about that one, the better. I'm not sure why no one has attempted to make another Ghostbusters game like this one. It's one of the very few Ghostbusters games that is considered good, so why change the formula? But regardless, this game will always hold a very special place in my heart as the true Ghostbusters 3.